I'm working with the ICA group, and I'm responsible for IT innovation and digitalization. We have some colleagues from the ICA group sitting in this room, so I'm trying to find you from time to time. What I would like to address today is how you could actually help your business with data innovation to find out why you should do this, and you should do this in a reasonably good time. If we look back 2.4 million years ago, that's a quite long time, right? That was the time that it took us to become that kind of individual or human being that we are today. So we have created that world, we have created data, we have created a lot of things. And it wasn't really a long time ago that there was someone who developed the first computer, and it was about, and then some of you might know, 97 years ago. What does that say us? It gives us a number which is 25,000. The development of what we call computer technology is 25,000 times faster than the development of the human beings. Now we are sitting here and we think we are in charge and we have control. It's you, it's other people working with innovation, making these kind of things possible. So if you consider this one, and if you look at this machine, which is the fastest computer right now in the world, which is in China. So that is quite amazing that it took less than 100 years to get there, right? What has this to do with data innovation? Quite a lot. If you stay with me just another few minutes, here's another image that is quite important, because if you look at data science and what is happening in that relation between men, the human beings and machines, a lot of stuff is happening. And that is a quite, I would say, steady development of what we have done over the years. But if you look at what's happening right now with the technology is just growing exponentially. And what does it mean exponentially? It's going so fast. It's not just that it's happening in a very short time. It's also what the technology is doing. So we have heard what the phone could do today and what the first big supercomputer in the world has done a couple of years ago. So it's the same kind of power that you can get. And if you look at the comparison of individuals, the human beings and the computers, there's one question that is quite interesting. Whom do you want to be smarter? And when we look at the chess game, we found out that, yeah, it was a long time ago that computers been very much smarter than the human beings. And we want, of course, her to be smarter, but it's not us anymore. But when you look at the chess game is a very specific game. So you have all of the rules, you have strategies. So it's quite easy to make a computer learning how to play chess. There are other challenges in life that are not really at the same level. And here comes another game into play, which is called Go. Go is a 90-to-19 grid. It's a Chinese game, 3,000 years old. There are very, very few rules. So how do you make a computer playing a game that's built on intuition? Yeah? So you need to really think different. You need to find a new way. And making computers being as smart as individuals, that takes a while. And the first time ever now, this game was played better by a computer than the best human being playing that kind of game. So and that is much, much different than just winning against us when we're playing chess against a computer. So what you can see is that this is a very, very impressive development, and we can see that this is shifting now from human beings to computers, and that's all about artificial intelligence. And we've heard about this in this room, we heard about this somewhere else, and some of you are doing this in your business. But when you look at this, the question that is quite important here, which remains, is why is all of this happening? How many of you heard about Moore and Moore's law? Of course, I think you all know. So what is the main thing with Moore's law? So if you look at the history and when he started, I think about 50 years ago, about when I was born, that rule started to apply. And there's this nice thing here. So if you start here and you double just with every field you do, and you do this over a couple of years, actually we are here, 2016, somewhere there, right? When you pass the red line, this is where we as human beings have difficulties to understand the data, the amount, what these figures mean. And when you run this game with a rice corn, you just end up with a huge amount of rice, much bigger than it's ever been produced in the history of the world, and will ever be produced. So this is an exponential change, and you can see how this is going to continue. And there's one more important thing. Moore's law is not about speed. It's about the transistors in the CPU. It's just how you can get more power out of your computer. It's not about the speed. So if you apply Moore's law and you think somewhat into the future, what is happening here? This is an exponential development. And we are somewhere there. So this means that all of the things that we are seeing right now, the technology shifts, the changes in how we use mobile phones, why it's possible to use mobile phones, while all of that data is there. Well, you can do this analytics because of this development is happening at this speed, and we are actually here. So what we have seen is quite challenging, but it's just the beginning. If we move on and consider this as the second machine age, there is something more to it, and that's about innovation. It's part of the Data Innovation Conference name as of today. And there's something very critical to this one. Most companies think innovation is to renovate the core. And it's very important to do, because you need to finance the new stuff, which is more the greenfield part. But if you're a traditional business, it's very difficult to find out how you should do something new when you have to do all of that work to renovate the core. And then I like this one. If I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. Yeah, and that's what you do when you're a traditional business, when you have to innovate. Yeah, you don't look at how can I completely change my business model. You look at how can I do the things better, and you apply the new technologies. But you know, the gap is growing with every day. You don't ask yourself, what else could I do? And that's very difficult. It's extremely difficult, because you're in your business models, in your situations, you have your customers, you've done investments. So there are a lot of questions related to this one. If we move on and look at some key trends that are now coming and producing a hell of a lot of data, the Internet of Things is growing exponentially as well. Yeah, if we could have this kind of number of devices in a couple of years, that is going to give us a tremendous amount of data. But it's not just Internet of Things, which is very, very exponential as well. There is something else, and that's when you put things together. And if we could look at these kind of trends, like we look at people, we are about 7 billion today, will be 10 billion in about 10 years. When we look at the things, 200 billion, that's quite a lot in 10 years. And when we add all of the business opportunities that will be generated in the business that exists, if you merge all of those, they will create so much data. I'm not sure how we should handle this. And we learned about what a phone can tell about you, but think about all of the phones and all of the devices and all of the business and all they start interacting. If you don't have the money to buy a Tesla today, maybe in 10 years, a Tesla is not a big deal for you, because you use the Tesla, and the Tesla is part of your own business model. You make money with your Tesla when you don't need the car. Then it drives away, finds someone who wants to drive a Tesla, you get paid automatically, the car starts to invoice. So you will do all of these things automatically. And that's the future, where a lot of data is produced, but you need data to produce it. It's a never-ending story. So maybe we all have a Tesla in 10 years, who knows? Which causes another problem. Then you won't find someone who wants to use it, right? But if we look into the future, this is the next big thing. I think here we're going to see a tremendous amount of data coming, opportunities, new business, and machines making autonomous decisions and making transactions. It's something completely new, something that we haven't seen before, right? You trust your car more than your wife when you're coming home from a party. That will be the future, driving the car. So disruption, considering the traditional business, the ability of traditional business to innovate is not that easy, as I mentioned, and that will make most of them fail faster than ever before, because new business models will arise, and they will arise very, very fast. So if you want to succeed with this one, with this challenge, you need to think about, how much time it took us to develop. So if we think that we can define the future by just looking at ourselves without applying technology, it's going to be very, very tough and difficult. And all of that technology will provide the data that you need to innovate. And this is a big number. It's Fortune 500 listed US companies, the biggest ones. About 20 of them are digital companies, or perceived to be digital. As of today, Patrick Force from Business Consulting, he said, Boston Consulting Group, he said, by 2020, 75% of the Fortune 500 are names we've never heard of. That means that a lot of companies will disappear. Whether this is going to be 2020 or 2025, that's not the big point. But what he's estimating is that it's a tremendous change in what kind of business we will see in a couple of years. And that tells us something more about the innovative data-driven business that is going to be outperformed by companies that think different. So if you're in a traditional business, and if you look at your development, you plan for just doing the same thing as you do today, somewhat better in the near future. So you will grow, but you won't grow exponentially. And what we've learned is that technology is giving us exponential opportunities. And when you look at the exponential opportunities of those companies who are rising now, like Uber and Airbnb, they have a different approach. They don't have the infrastructure. They don't have what you call the legacy in the traditional companies, right? Because they move. They have social networks. They build on a scalable business model. They can get their customers on board very, very fast. And they will build, based on their first initial ideas, new business models and new ideas. So they generate a lot of new things all the time. That's completely different to what we have seen when you look at traditional business. While the traditional business has the challenges with the infrastructure, with the legacy, and everything else. So if you look into the future and you work within a very big company, you will have these kind of challenges, because as we learn from Patrick Force, there's a risk to be out of business if you do not apply these kind of changes. So I think it's a different way of looking at the reason why is it important to find out how to use data and how to innovate with data. And I would like to say thank you and conclude with the final statement that explore the opportunities with data innovation to not risk to be out of business soon. Thank you so much.